So start with everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good afternoon everybody. This is our Year 13 Into Next Steps webinar. My name is Chris Price. We're recording this from my office on North Site, Thursday afternoon, just coming up to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We originally were going to do these absolutely live, but the technical challenges of actually doing them live are really tricky. So we're just recording this a few hours before we then put it live onto the YouTube platform. We thought we would try to do things as live as possible for a variety of reasons. One, because actually there's so much changing all the time, particularly in relation to schools moving forward. This webinar will particularly touch on results days in August and issues in relation to then examinations moving forward, and actually so much of that has been clarified in the last few days, so we are pleased we've left it to this point to try and communicate. And equally, what we really wanted to do and set ourselves the task at the start of this week is to try and do something for every single year group across the school, including actually from the new Year 6s coming into Year 7. And that links to the third point, which of course we want to try and do something as personal and direct as possible at this stage, especially after such a tough year for the youngsters. And with that all in mind, I know you will appreciate that any errors or little mistakes or technical mishaps can occasionally happen, and apologies in advance if any do. So there are 4 colleagues here who will talk about a range of issues. We have had some emails from parents. We've tried to build those into our communications. Hopefully all of that will be covered. There will be some additional FAQs that will go on our website. There is also a PowerPoint presentation that sort of sits alongside our presentation of this type, and we'll make sure that we sync the two together and get them on the website ideally by tomorrow, if not by the start of next week. And I think we were just really keen, as I said, to provide with some information, especially in relation to exam results, because we want to make sure that people are feeling reassured and knowledgeable as we move into the summer break. However, before talking specifically about planning for September and moving forward, I did want to sort of touch on another matter that has really resonated for all of us while schools have been shut. The Black Lives Matter campaign has really resonated across the world, and it really has resonated definitely in our own community. And I know that the issues raised have made all big institutions reflect and question themselves. And schools are no different, and I think our school's no different, and I personally have spent quite a lot of time reflecting. Now that's been aided actually by quite a lot of correspondence that I've received, and indeed meetings that I've had with both current students, former students, teachers, parents, carers, and I have found that incredibly helpful in thinking about things for our school. Moving forward, this issue will be very central with our own development planning, and in fact already is, and we will look to give our stakeholders, and that completely includes Year 13s who are leaving and will therefore become our most recent alumni. We want them to have a voice in our next steps and our approaches. One major priority, and this is true for I think all schools and again for us, is to keep reviewing our curriculum to make sure it's as inclusive and diverse as possible. You'll be aware that it's rightly the government's ambition for all students in all year groups to return full time. I just wanted to say a tiny bit of that before we move on, because it is relevant to how we're going to handle things in and around results. You'll probably be aware that the way schools will operate in September will involve operating in separate year group bubbles. We will need to have a staggered school day, particularly in terms of arrival and departure. And we equally have learned quite a lot over the last few months because we have been open for vulnerable children and key worker children, and then for Year 10 and Year 12, about the reshaping of our facilities for enhanced hygiene and inducting students in the procedures. So we have hand sanitising, as you'd imagine, on arrival, departure and during the day. We have additional hand washing facilities. We have additional cleaning. We have new signs and line markings to allow clarity in terms of what students should do, and one-way systems. Now I'm mentioning all of these at this point because when we talk about results days and then our clinics, students and indeed parents will need to be aware of some of these new measures because they are part of how we now work around the school. Now, with that in mind, I'm just going to hand over immediately at that point to Mr. Hilton, who will develop some of the things about results.
Hi, good afternoon. As Mr. Price said, my role today is to talk a little bit about the A-Level Results days and some of the processes around awarding those grades this summer. I'd imagine that Year 13 have been through a huge range of emotions this summer as their chance to take their A-Levels was taken away from them. We certainly felt that the students were ready, and although that exam period is always tough for everyone, I feel a real sadness for them. They didn't get to rise to that challenge because we were completely confident they would have risen to that challenge, and I'm sad they didn't get the chance to show all the amazing things they're capable of. Sadly, we'll never know the outcome of what those exams would have been, and across the school, teachers felt a real kind of frustration and disappointment on behalf of students, really. They really did feel for them as they missed out on those exams this summer. And what I can tell you though is that your teachers have worked incredibly hard during the school closure with many meetings, multiple discussions to make sure that they do get those well-deserved qualifications in the summer. And what I'm going to do today is explain just a little bit about how that process has worked and the next steps. So throughout the process, the school was operating under really specific guidance from the government, which was created really by the conditions around COVID-19. And what the school was required to do was submit two things to the exam boards. So we were required to submit a centre assessed grade, and that's the grade that the student most likely would have got if they had sat the exams, and also to put the students in a rank order within those grades. Both of those bits of information are then submitted to the exam boards and then are subject to a moderation process. So the exam boards are currently conducting a standardisation process designed really to make sure the results have the same status as other years. So the results will change. We don't know the precise details of that process because it's not yet been published, but we are aware that there will be changes and what those changes are based upon. So the changes will be based upon three things. The expected grade distribution at national level, which basically means the normal sort of spread of results across the country. The results in previous years at individual centres, so basically the normal results at Cherwell, and a prior attainment profile of students at centre level. So what that means in the case of A-Level is the GCSE results that students carried through into the sixth form. So you're probably wondering how the centre assessed grades were formed. Well, we followed the government guidance very, very closely, and what they said was that the grades and rank order should be formed using a variety of forms of assessment and never from any single test, exam, assessment. So for A-Level this included any classwork, bookwork, any performances or practical components, non-examined assessment, which is coursework, whether it's complete or not, any marked assignments, the results of all their mock exams that they've done across the years with us, previous exam performance where relevant, progress review data, because of course we've published our kind of most likely grades as we've gone throughout the year, which is based on their work holistically, and really any other records of students' performance that teachers had at their disposal. Now I could talk at length here really about the processes that we followed because there were many stages to the moderation of those grades, but I think it's probably too detailed for the context of this webinar. Full details will be processed however in separate documentation to parents in and around the exam results. I think what's crucial for parents to know at this stage is that, well, three things really. The grades were formed using a wide range of evidence, that there were extensive moderation discussions between teachers and subject leaders, and then a further kind of stage of multiple moderation processes that involve the senior leaders in the school and indeed the governing body. So in terms of results then, A-Level A-Levels will be awarded results as normal this summer, and the government has put in some kind of special measures to help that happen. We've decided as a school then that we'd like to run a results day by and large as normally as possible, but with additional measures put in place to make it as safe as we can. The A-Level results will take place on Thursday the 13th of August, and I'll publish full details of the process to you on Monday next week. Students will be allowed to collect their A-Level results from 9 AM, but in order to comply with the public health guidance, we're going to ask parents and carers to remain either in their cars in the car park or off-site. If students are unable to collect results in person, a third-party collection form will be available as normal from the school website to complete. and we can also post the results to students should you wish that to happen. And again, there'll be a results form on the school website in order to arrange that. The primary aim of the special arrangements introduced by government was so that students could move on to their next steps in education, and historically we've offered a clinic on the Friday to really support students in those immediate next steps. So we felt it was absolutely the right thing to do that this year, and despite the challenge of this, we'd like to offer that in-person contact on the Friday the 14th as we normally do. Clinics will run from 9 AM that morning, and they're really for students who have two kind of issues really that we can help with. First of all, it's either UCAS or progression issues to their next steps, or students who might need some immediate advice on the autumn exam series. As with every year 13, this is an incredibly important transition, and we just feel that offering our usual support as best we can was the thing we should do for students in year 13 again this year. So the autumn exam series is something you may have heard about. The government was very keen in its initial kind of thoughts about this summer to provide students an opportunity to do exams if they wanted to, and so they have made a commitment to running an extra series of exams in the autumn. They've really identified this is for two groups of students. So for any young people for whom it was not possible to issue a grade this summer, and there's a variety of reasons that could have been the case, or for those who wish to improve on their grade awarded in the summer by taking an exam. At this point we don't really have complete clarity about exactly what those exams look like, but we do have some information, and it seemed like a really good point to share that with parents now. We know that for A-level, for example, the exams will run between October the 5th and October the 23rd. We know that a full set of exams will be offered, so that's any examination that students were entered for in May or June will be offered in that autumn exam series. We also know the deadline for entries is September the 4th, and that's one of course to bear in mind. We will make sure our exams officers and department are around on those results days to support with any desire to make those entries, and of course also in that first week of September to support you to make those entries happen if that's the step that you feel you wish to take. Students will sit the same number of papers as they would have sat in the summer, and the results in this exam series will be based on the exam series alone and not coursework, and that's with the exception of art. They felt it was too complicated to carry over coursework into that series because students could have been in a variety of positions, possibly not having finished it. So if you take an example of the history coursework, students would have submitted that, but they wouldn't have had it back yet. Other subjects may have chosen to do that coursework as the last element of the course, and therefore it put them at a disadvantage. There'll also be a full and normal appeals process following those exams. Students will be issued a certificate for both the summer award and the autumn exam series. There was some discussion about whether one should trump the other, and the final decision made there that they would be certified for both. And students can only enter exams in the autumn which they were entered for originally in the summer. So maybe you've spent your summer holidays studying French and you want to do A-level French. I'm afraid you won't be able to do that until next summer. Lots and lots of detail there from me, and just to reassure you, we'll communicate in full and in writing about the results days and the autumn exam series next week. So with that, I think I'll pass over to Miss Alexander, who's going to talk to you more about UCAS really and some of the next steps related to that.
Okay, good afternoon. It's good to be here to talk to you. I'm going to talk about the next steps following exam results. Your son or daughter will already have received this information throughout Year 13, but I think it's just worth sharing this with you here now. A large proportion of our students have made university applications for 2020 entry or deferred entries for 2021 and are holding offers of places, most of which are conditional offers and are dependent upon the student achieving particular A-level grades. Students will be holding a first choice offer, which is their firm choice, and a second place offer, which is their insurance choice. Universities then inform students of decisions about places on their courses at a minute past midnight on Thursday the 13th of August via the UCAS tracker. All students who have applied have received their UCAS tracker login when their application was received, so this should be very familiar to them. This notification from UCAS though will not include the students' A-level results, and it's worth noting that in some cases this will mean that the students have met the entry requirements for that course, but in some cases it may mean that a student hasn't met the entry requirements for the course, but that the university has offered them the place anyway. In other words, when they receive their notification from UCAS, students will still not know their actual A-level results until they collect them from school. Some students do wait up for this notification from UCAS, whilst others choose to wait until they collected their results from the school. It's a very personal choice, and students should choose what they're comfortable with. If a student's place at their firm choice has been confirmed and they wish to proceed with this, they don't need to do anything more. They simply need to wait for further information from the university. This is also the case if they've missed their firm choice but made their insurance and wish to attend that. Simply sit tight and wait for the university to get in touch. Some students may have secured their firm choice but have changed their minds about attending in 2020 and wish to defer that until 2021. In this case, students will need to contact the admissions department for that subject. If any students know now that that is something that they definitely want to do, I would very much advise them to be contacting admissions tutors now. Universities aren't obliged to change their offer, and if the student's request is declined, they'll need to decide whether to accept their place for this year or alternatively withdraw and reapply for next year. Another scenario that a student may find themselves in, that they've changed their mind and want to do a completely different course. Again, students simply withdraw their application and submit a new one for September. Occasionally, students decide that they would prefer to accept their insurance offer rather than their firm choice, despite getting their firm choice offer. In this situation, the student needs to contact their firm choice university and explain the situation in order to be able to take up their insurance place. For any students who are holding unconditional offers, their place will already have been secured. Inevitably, some students that have applied to university this year will not secure a place. If this is the case, they will of course be disappointed, but please be reassured that we know that students go on from this and find equally fulfilling and exciting opportunities. If this does happen, they have a number of options at that point. Firstly, if they're close to the entry requirements, it is always worth calling the admissions tutors themselves to see if they will reconsider offering a place, or if there are places available on similar courses at the same university. Alternatively, if a student still wants to start a course in 2020, they can do this through clearing, and they should begin this process as soon as they can on results day. A list of all of the courses available can be found in the clearing section of UCAS. Students will need to call the institution, obtain a provisional offer as soon as possible. As I say, it's important to do this early as the places do fill up. That said, once a student has received a provisional offer, they should take some time to just reflect on it and think if it really is the right place for them. If a student does not want to apply through clearing but still wants to go to university, they'll need to submit an application for 2021 entry. For them and for any students who wish to apply for 2021 courses, they will need to apply through school, and details of how to do this will be communicated to them. If any students wish to talk to a member of staff about their application in September, we'd be very happy to do this, and they just need to drop us an email. Finally, some students will want to enter employment, including apprenticeships. The Google Classroom materials that they received just as we went into lockdown, and the PowerPoint accompanying this, contains some very useful links, and Mr. Davis, our careers advisor, is available to support students with this. I appreciate that this is a lot of information for a range of scenarios, and I would encourage any student or parent that's unsure about their son or daughter's next steps following their results, or wishes to talk through choices, to come along to the clinic on that Friday, and we'd be more than happy to help. I'm now going to hand over to your head of year, Miss Rapson.
Hello. As year leader for 13, I have nothing but admiration for this year group. Having their year end so suddenly, I was immensely proud of the calm and mature way every student responded to events in March, and have continued to respond in the last few months, particularly regarding their A-level exams and results. I know Mrs. Fisher would agree with me. It's been lovely to hear from many students about what they have been doing since March. Many of Year 13 took the Resilience course, and many more have been engaging with the post-Cherwell subject materials, preparing for their next steps. I have also filled in several job references for holiday work and future employment, so it's really good to know that many students are moving forward and planning for the exciting futures that they had ahead of them. We will mark the end of this year in student experience at Cherwell with tutor reports. These were written by form tutors and the year team earlier this year and are a really wonderful reflection of each student. They'll be sent out to you in the next few days. Obviously for Year 13 students, the key date is August the 13th, ALevel Results Day. We are really looking forward to welcoming students on site to collect their results. I'll be here as well as Mrs Fisher and many of the sixth form team, and we really hope that this will be as a normal as results day as we can give Year 13, just minus the hugging. On the same day, we are really hopeful the yearbook will be ready for collection. And can I say at this point a huge thank you to Mrs Fisher and the yearbook team who, despite lockdown, have still managed to put this together to such a high standard. It looks brilliant. I think the final thing for me to mention is that after results day, we are still here for Year 13 leaving students. I'll be in school on Friday the 14th as well as Mrs Fisher to support our Year 13 students if they need any help and advice on their next steps. And we're also here throughout the year if students need support with UCAS or other courses, and of course, if you have other questions or need advice about the next steps, please don't hesitate to get in touch. And with that in mind, do make sure we have your correct contact details. Myself and Mrs Fisher had a couple of tentative conversations about the Year 13 celebration event, and we'll be in touch with students once we can sensibly and safely celebrate in style. And on that note, I wish you a very safe and relaxing summer and the very best wishes for an exciting future.
And I'll just come back at that moment then to conclude really, and just very final words. For parents and carers now, actually this may be your last contact as your child moves out of the school, so we want to keep the contact as strong as possible. We've been inundated by offers of support during this period in particular, and one of the things we recognise to keep things moving on, particularly for youngsters who've been out of school for so long in different year groups coming back to school, is to keep partnerships as strong as possible. We're really keen on getting more volunteers into school in a variety of ways, and we'll be launching a new volunteers website in September, so please look out for that. And I just wanted to echo the words of Miss Rapson there. So as we come towards the end of a very, very difficult year, I wanted to finish by wishing you and your families a relaxing summer, and our commitment to handle the examination results period as professionally and as caringly as possible. So thank you.